Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. Got a bit of a different video for you guys today, but it's one that's very important to me and it's close to my heart. This isn't scripted. I just want to do this because of how important it is to me. So please bear with me and I'll try to be as concise and brief as I can without getting preachy. As of the making of this video, it is November the 11th, Veterans Day 2024. Veterans Day is a very important day for me and my family because we have veterans in our family. My grandfather was a Marine in World War II. My aunt is a captain in the Navy, or was. She retired some time ago. I have a couple cousins who are in the Navy, one in the Rangers. You know, we have family members who are either actively in the military or were in the military. And we have a lot of respect and reverence for what they do. We honor their sacrifices and what they put up with and what they went through for us. So veterans and warriors mean a great deal to me and my family. But the funny thing is, I think that it is important that our society respects and reveres our warriors. And you know, that goes without saying, I feel like. I think a lot of you agree that we should respect and revere our soldiers who fight, die, or if they don't die, maybe injured or suffer mental stress, or just they make sacrifices, I think is the best way to put it. They make sacrifices for our sake, and we should respect that. But I've noticed a trend in today's age. I actually saw this the other day. I saw a series of TikToks of people who were saying that if you're a veteran, if you're a person who is or has ever been associated with the military-industrial complex, they call it, or the Brotherhood of Murderers, I've heard some call it. You know, if you're a part of this group of sanctioned murderers, you deserve all the PTSD, all the ridicule, all the homelessness, all the mistreatment that you get. And I will be 100% honest, I was appalled. I was so blown away by this attitude. Because, you know, I would never think it. And in my opinion, this is such a recent phenomena. I think that we started feeling this way around, I'd say, around the time of the Vietnam War. But even then, you'd think that it would have gone a little bit downhill since then, but it has not. I feel like it has gotten worse. I feel like today we have a misunderstanding of what it is to honor our warriors. And so what I want to do today, briefly, is talk a little bit about why we honor our warriors. Why is it so important that we respect and honor our warriors? So let's talk about it. I get asked a lot what got me into For Honor, what made me want to play For Honor. And the big reason, I would say, is because of my love for history and my love for ancient warriors. I studied ancient medieval warfare for a long time. I studied knights, Vikings, samurai. I studied these factions. I studied who they were, what they did, what they believed, how they fought. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that though these cultures are vastly different, and though these cultures have very different methods of war and weapons and armor and language, at the end of the day, they have something in common. And what that commonality is they have their warriors whose primary purpose is to protect and defend their people, their culture, and their nation. The knight's purpose was to go to war for the sake of their lands and their people. The Vikings raided and pillaged for the betterment of themselves and their people. The samurai fought to defend their interests and their people and their lands and their lords. At the end of the day, these warriors' primary task was to protect that which was theirs, to be loyal to their people and to their lords, and to essentially maintain the society that they live in. Now, of course, not every warrior is a good person. Not every soldier is righteous. Obviously, there are going to be bad ones out there. I'm not questioning that. But at the end of the day, that is why good warriors exist, to put down the bad ones. And if we did not have a standard by which to hold up bad versus good warriors, how could we know the bad from the good? In my opinion, there is a distinction. I think that the idea of calling all warriors evil because they go to war doesn't create a good distinction between what is good and what is bad. At the end of the day, there are going to be bad people in the world. You're going to run across bad people. You're going to run across your Adolf Hitlers, your Joseph Stalins, your Pol Pots. your Mao Zedongs. You're going to have evil people in the world. And who do you want at your side when those evil people rear their heads and want to attack you, your family, your property, your nation? What are you going to do? Who are you going to trust in? Hopefully a good warrior. But if you think all warriors are evil just because they're warriors, well, then how will you even recognize the good warriors? The warrior's role. I was asked this question by Lark the other night. What is the difference between a warrior and a soldier? Here's my answer to that. A soldier is a man disciplined and trained for the army. He is taught to march with the army, fight beside his fellow soldiers, and fight for a country. A warrior fights because he has dedicated himself to warfare. You can have a soldier who is a warrior, but not all soldiers are necessarily warriors. Some soldiers are normal people who've picked up a gun and decided that they will engage in war, though war is not their profession. For a warrior, war is their profession. But why? For some people, it's because they just like fighting. But for others, it's because it is the way in which they can help secure peace, prosperity, and the security of what they love. There's a saying, I don't remember who said it, but it stuck with me. If you're not prepared to fight for the things you love, then you deserve to lose them. If you're not prepared to fight for the things you love, then you deserve to lose them. I remember some time ago, I did a response to a Wisecrack video where he was talking about war being a recent thing, a recent phenomena because of nationalism. And he was talking about how in ancient, primitive cultures, they had ways of settling disputes. And his favorite way of settling a dispute was to run away from the angry guy with the club. I remember that clip. It was one that stuck with me because it cemented not only what a coward he was, but it also taught me something. If your method of dealing with disputes, or dealing with an antagonist, or dealing with a threat is to capitulate, to run away from it, to cower before it, and not even try to fight for the thing you love, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. If a man broke into my house to kill my children, to have his way with my wife, to steal my possessions, and I'm afraid of fighting him because I'm afraid of what it could do to me socially, or because I'm afraid he could hurt me, then I don't deserve the things that he's going to take. If I'm not willing to lay down my life for my wife, my children, my property, then why do I have it? Why do I have it? This is why warriors are so important. This is why I believe that it is so important to have a warrior mindset. There are people who cannot fight for themselves, who need warriors to step in. And so when I play For Honor and I see these warriors, I like to see their stories, what they're fighting for. Whether it be the Knights fighting for Ashfeld, the Vikings fighting for Valkenheim, the Samurai fighting for the Mire, whatever they're fighting for, somewhere in their heart, they're fighting for something higher than themselves. And that, to me, is inspiring. That's what I love about warriors. Fighting for something greater than yourself. Sacrificing something for someone else. I don't mind the blood and the cuts and the bruises and the broken bones if it means that I am taking the injuries for something else. And I've been there. Some of you know the story that I talk about where I was jumped. Some of you know that I have been in situations where I've gotten hurt for other people. It's not fun, it's not pretty, and it's painful. Some of you have been in those situations. Which is why I respect warriors so much, which is why I respect our veterans so much, because of what they've had to go through. It's also why I was so upset in that Dead by Daylight lore piece that I did on Vittorio Toscano, a 13th century young man who claimed that violence was the last-ditch choice of incompetence when they couldn't resolve their problems, and all I could think to that was, you're a fool. You're an absolute fool. There's an old saying, it's a philosophical point that I love. If a culture separates its scholars from its warriors, it will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. The point was, warriors are not meant to be thugs or incompetents. They're not meant to be barbaric fools who just go out on the battlefield and swing a club around to hit people with. They are meant to be intelligent. They're meant to be thoughtful. They're meant to have intellect. A warrior is more than a thug. A warrior is more than a brute who goes out on the battlefield looking to spill blood. Any idiot can pick up a weapon and run out and hit somebody over the head with it. I would expect a monkey to be able to do that. But what makes a warrior is not just the ability to take a life, but to protect a life. What makes a warrior is someone who not only knows how to kill on the battlefield, but kill because it means something higher than themselves. I don't want a warrior who revels in death and takes pleasure in it. I want a warrior who knows that if they don't take this life, then the lives of the people back home are in danger. I wrote a short story called The Final Stand about a young knight fighting a big dragon. Sort of a short practice story, but in the story, this knight is the last warrior to stand alone against this dragon, and it would be so easy for him to run. But he knows that if he does, there's nothing stopping that dragon from just marching into his city behind him and killing everyone inside. He's the only one left, and knowing that he will probably die, he still marches forward to take on the dragon. And that inspires me. That fills me up. Because I wish I could be like that. There are times I do get the opportunity to be like that. They're few and far between, because we live in a time where we are blessed with relative peace. There aren't a lot of situations where I have to pick up sword and run in the defense of my family, my friends, my people. I don't normally have to do that. It's only happened like maybe twice in my life where I've had to be the one who takes up arms against someone else for the sake of someone else. But those stories inspire me, and it's why I love warriors so much. It's why I love this warrior mindset of fighting and dying for others. Jesus said it himself, there can be no greater love than this, that you sacrifice yourself for a friend. There can be no greater form of love than that you lay down your life for a friend. And a warrior who is willing to face the odds and fight, putting their own lives on the line, knowing they could lose their lives and still fight for someone else. Because that's the cost that veterans have to pay. The veterans, that those old, we like to just look at them and see these old men in uniform. But do you know what they've seen? A lot of them, they've gone through hell. Oh, we can play our video games like Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Halo, For Honor. We can play these games where there's a big battle, but we can always turn off the game. They didn't get to turn off the game. They saw combat. World War II, World War I, Vietnam, the Korean War, Iraq, Afghanistan. They've seen combat. They've lost brothers on the battlefield. Many of them came home to ridicule, revulsion, and hate, despite them giving up so much for the very country that is now treating them like crap. It shouldn't be that way. Which is why I'm so glad to have a Veterans Day to honor people who go through that. I remember when I was doing my response video to one of those Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 articles, where someone said that the ideal of brotherhood that we see in Space Marine 2 is false. And I've seen, and I laughed at it at the time, but I've seen it before where people talk about like brothers in arms, the whole idea of brothers and comrades in war, brothers in war doesn't exist, or it's faulty, or it's over-romanticized. And to that I would argue, Do you even understand what it is to stand side by side with someone going through hell? Do you know what that's like? I can't sit here and claim I do. I have not been in war. But I will tell you this. I have enough understanding to know that when you are in the trenches, war around you, hell around you, and you have to trust your life in the hands of the man right next to you, and he has to trust his life in yours, that forms a bond as tight as any brother. That is why it's a brotherhood. Because you can't depend on anyone other than the guy next to you. And you have to trust that he's going to have your back and you're going to have his. That dependence on each other forms a brotherhood. Why? Because you are walking through hell arm in arm, and you want to make it out, he's going to help you. If he goes down, your chances have gone down too. It's a brotherhood. And so when these men come home, and the years pass by and they think of all they saw and all they've seen and all they fought for, how much do you think it hurts? Some of them, their brothers didn't come home. Some of them may ask themselves, why not me? The least we could do for them is say thank you for what you sacrificed and what you lost. Thank you for what you did. Thank you for what you were willing to sacrifice. That's the least we could do. Because the vast majority of us have not ever had to suffer what they suffered, and we're lucky that we don't have to suffer what they suffered because of what they did. We don't have to go through that hell because they went through it for us. And that's why I have respect for these men who did this. That's why I have respect for warriors. So you might ask the question, what changed? Why do we now live in a society that is more willing to be disrespectful and demeaning of our soldiers? Well, there are a lot of reasons. One of the chief reasons being we live in a time of sort of peace. I'm not going to say total peace, but sort of peace. Like, America has not had a war on its own lands in over 2 centuries. Not since the Civil War have we had any real war on our own land. We don't have to run the risk of army insurgents breaking through our doors and killing our people. Other countries are not so fortunate. But we've been very fortunate. So it's very easy for us Americans to belittle our military because we haven't had to see firsthand the importance of our warriors. But I guarantee you, countries like South Korea, who have a neighbor right next door who's always causing crap, they respect their warriors. They respect their warriors. Because they know how desperately they need them. Israel, surrounded on all sides by enemies, constantly being bombarded and attacked, they respect their soldiers. Because a society that is surrounded by war and death and danger, trust me, they respect the men and women who are prepared to fight and die for them. We've been kind of lucky that we haven't had to, but why are we that lucky? Why is America lucky that we haven't had to see it? Why do we get the opportunity to be so full of ourselves that we can say these things? Because there are men and women willing to go outside of our country to fight those wars so that they don't come to us. And we forget that. We take it for granted. As it was back in the days of the medieval knights, it is today. There are men and women who will be willing to make the sacrifice, be it their health, their mind, or even their lives, for the preservation and defense of people back home. Willing to give it all up for our betterment. And I admire that. I admire it. It's not an easy thing to do. It's the hardest thing you can do. Because it is the ultimate act of selflessness. So I admire warriors. I admire our veterans. I admire our soldiers. And not just ours, not just in America, but around the world. Britain, France, South Korea, Japan, China. Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Spain, every country. They have their warriors.
Have to die here.
They're soldiers. I don't look at the politicians. I don't look at their political ideologies. I look at what they're willing to do. There are people in every country who care so much about their families back home and about their country and about their countrymen that they're willing to fight and die for their betterment. And that has to be respected. Even if you don't agree with what they're fighting for, even if you don't agree with the politics from the home that they come from, at least you can respect the fact that these people were willing to fight and die for something they love. Usually, it has nothing to do with the politics. Usually, it has everything to do with a wife back home, or a child, or a house, a brother, a sister, a father, or a mother. I guarantee you, most people who fight and die in the trenches, their last thoughts are not of the presidents or kings and queens back home who told them to be out here. Their last thoughts of who they're leaving behind. It gets me a little choked up, honestly. I'll wrap up with this. It is truly a testament to how nice we have it today that we can afford to ridicule veterans. We wouldn't be able to talk like this 100 years ago.
Go after her.
Because back then I think we had a better understanding of what it meant to be a soldier and a warrior. To put everything on the line for something greater. And I'll say it again, I'm not saying every warrior's a good person. I'm not saying every soldier's a good person. There are definitely bad eggs in every group you come across. But the ideal of the warrior, the ideal of the soldier, to give your energy, your time, and your effort to fight for something higher than yourself. To dedicate yourself to an art form that means death for others and possible death for yourself. What do you do it for? Me personally, I would do it for my brother, my mother and father, my family, my home, my country. And even if I wasn't in my country, I like to think I'd do it for the innocent bystander. A person who I barely know. I like to. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. I know I've been rambling for a while, and if you watched this far into it, I thank you. I know this was a different one. But it is an interesting topic, I think. I play all these games that involve warriors. I feel it's important to recognize the real-world warriors who actually make the sacrifices. Not just the ones in video games or in movies, but the ones that we actually see. The ones we can actually pass by and meet. Happy Veterans Day to all the men and women who fought for this country, who lost brothers and sisters for this country, who gave it all up for us. You deserve so much more than we can ever give you. And to the warriors of the past who fought and died to create the future we live in now, thank you.
Look, there was nothing you could have done for us.
Couldn't be here without you.
That fucking hyena was toying with us.
We talk about revised history all the time, what the world would look like in a different setup. But you know, we wouldn't have this present without those warriors who fought and died to create it. So thank you. Happy Veterans Day
Isaac's back up and running. Nice.
to every one of you.
Meet me back at the White House. I've got some new
This is
info
Raven
I'll
Knight,
share with
and
you
I'll
in a
see
minute.
you in my next video.
Come back to the base
Take
if
care.
you want to add to your skills.